Alright, we are recording. It's been a while since I have recorded a video, and it's been even longer since I have recorded a book review. And I thought maybe I could slowly start again talking about books, not necessarily reviewing, but just talking about books. So I'm just going to start recording. I'm recording now, but I'm going to just give myself time and edit later. I noticed that my method of doing YouTube videos puts a lot of pressure early on, and I almost edit myself while I'm recording. Similar to how you might edit while you're writing the first draft. That's a lot of pressure. In most cases, it prevents us, that kind of thing. It prevents us from producing a first draft. But I do that sometimes in writing, and I do that a lot with YouTubing, because I don't know, I have this irrational fear that my phone's gonna run out of battery or run out of space if I record long videos. But anyways, far from the madding crowd. When you start reading that book again for a second time, which I did, you look at that first character, the main male character of the story, in a different way. Everything about him now that you know the story, takes on a new meaning. You notice that. I did notice the first time, but the second time I noticed in a different way how much he's ready to be there, how much he's ready to fulfill that story, the character in that story, to fulfill that role, how much he's made for that role. So the name of that main character is Gabriel Oak, or Farmer Oak. He's a farmer. His first name is Gabriel, last name Oak. Farmer Oak doesn't care too much about his appearances, the way he's clothed, what he's wearing. He doesn't care that it seems a little bit odd. He doesn't conform to expectations of society. He doesn't actively too much seek the approval of other people. He has a little bit of he's a bit individualistic, you might say. And he's in tune with the natural world, which for Thomas Hardy, that's really a metaphysical stance, that maybe being in nature is what makes us most human, or what makes us the best version of human. It brings out the best from human potential, all that is in us in the form of a potential. Being attuned with nature, even simple acts like looking at the stars before falling asleep, looking at the stars at night, which is something that many of us have experienced. I experienced it. I remember experiencing this as a kid. I remember how meditative, how calming it was looking at the stars, looking at the sky. It's very similar to looking at the sea. Sitting by the beach, looking at the waves hitting against the shore, or looking at trees in a forest. The calming effect of that. So Farmer Oak, there's that scene early on, I think it is in the second chapter or third chapter. He's looking at the starry sky, different constellations. That position of being in touch with nature, with his nature, with the natural world, that is part of what prepares him, not completely, but in some ways, and at least partially, prepares him to meet the central female character of the story, Bathsheba. Bathsheba is not well understood by most people there, not because she's unnatural, but because nature has produced something novel. Nature has produced this young, beautiful, attractive young woman who now can be independent, who is in a position of relatively speaking, position of power, wealth. She has found herself in a position that is new to her, that is new to other people. They don't know what to do with her. But one of the advantages of being in touch with nature is that you are now able to appreciate not nature as a conservative setting, not nature as a conservative force, but as a productive, creative force. You can now appreciate something that is new in nature because you're in touch with it. So Farmer Oak, that's in my reading of the book. Farmer Oak's ability to be in tune allows him to appreciate both the naturalness and the newness of Bathsheba Aberdeen. The first thing that he notices about her is her act of observing herself, being occupied with herself, looking at her own image, reflecting on herself, reflecting on who she is. And I think that's a continuing thread in the book. She goes through a lot, and we are reading a story. We talked about this with Tyson. We talked about how we are reading the story of a woman who doesn't really fully understand her position. She doesn't understand who she is, and she doesn't have the cultural resources for that understanding. Her culture, her society, it's not that the society and culture doesn't want her to understand herself or be who she is. The culture around her doesn't know how to support her. Like parents who have a really good heart, but they just don't know what to do to deal with this child who is naturally different from the rest of the family. It's kind of an oddball. Society and culture. So culture is presented to us as a conservative, blind force that protects itself against novelty, against newness, against new variations. There's an older guy, is it Baldwood, his name? Doesn't matter. There's an older character who is very cultured, who's an older bachelor, the older guy among them. And he's, the thing about this older guy, who is unfortunately the person who occupies the position of defeat, if there is defeat, if there is loss. It's that guy, it's that older guy. There are three men who are interested in Bathsheba. The older guy who's also farmer, but more of an owner. Gabriel works with him for him too. This guy, it was really a puzzling moment where Bathsheba almost promises to him, or he wants Bathsheba to promise to him, to, if everything goes according to plan. I don't want to tell you all the details, but there's almost this promise of, if everything goes according to what we expect, what this guy expects, let's get married in 6-7 years. And then we get this private perspective of this guy who's like, there's something enjoyable about just that waiting, as if he wants to stay in this bubble of just being in that kind of promissory relationship, like just cultural participation for its own sake, emptied out of its natural substance. And he wants to get married, and it has total disregard for what the woman is going through, what Bathsheba is going through. Again, it's about ceremony. As long as we do the ceremony, as long as you agree to do the ceremony with me, nothing else matters. So that blindness of somebody who has full trust in culture, cultural practices, promise, like the meaning of a promise, just is in the act of promising. We don't have to pay attention to what the person is going on privately, internally. It's a little bit naive, right? That kind of naivete. And then the other person that I haven't talked about, the other young man, who is this wild character. Thomas Hardy's style of telling this story is very interesting because the characters, based on what I'm talking about now, based on my descriptions, you might think that maybe these characters are archetypes, but Thomas Hardy's descriptions really resist archetypal reduction to archetypes. Like, this guy is that type. Like I said, I'm leading you to think that maybe Gabriel is the archetype of a natural guy, a person who is in tune with nature, or maybe he's an individualist, but he's so much more than that. He's so much more. And the three guys and the central character, the female central character, they're not really archetypes. Not that I wouldn't say that. Instead, towards the end of the book, we do get a glimpse that maybe Hardy is talking about something archetypal. Something archetypal, but that something is not a person. Instead, it is a relationship. It is the archetype of a relationship. It's a type of relationship that Hardy wants us to pay attention to. A relationship between men and women. And he wants us to consider something as the basis of a relationship between a man and a woman, two romantic partners. And that basis, according to him, according to what he has in mind, that basis is this, the life they go through together, the suffering they go through together, the hardship. And he says, it's such a shame. This is not a spoiler because it doesn't reveal any of the elements of the story, but Hardy says, what a shame, because in society, according to our societal norms and habits, when men and women get together, I mean in a heterosexual form of romance, when men and women get together, they're usually getting together to enjoy each other's presence. But the real bond between two romantic partners is rooted in going through hardship, not going through enjoyment. That enjoyment doesn't last, or it really fails to bond the two individuals in the way that they need to have that depth and richness of relationship between them. So by that point where the two characters recognize each other as what they are to each other, what they can be to each other, it seems so effortless to them, because now the story really leads them to be positioned. In the beginning, they were positioned as to be potentially involved with each other. Some accidents happen. They become distant, and then they get back into each other's lives. But they go through this love story, goes through the most inefficient detours. It's a whole detour. The detour is so long that it's almost not a happy ending at the end. I say almost not a happy ending because I didn't feel happy. There was just this calm feeling of acceptance. Yeah, it's not a very good book review. I'm sorry if you're not happy with it. It doesn't tell you much about the book, but I liked the book. I tried to start reading it for a second time, and it was heavy. But I will keep it on the shelf. I'm interested in reading it again. I'm interested in spending more time with it. What I'm reading right now is after work. I'm reading the first volume of Edmund Husserl's Logical Investigations. That's a different story. I'll tell you about that more, but it's very likely that I'll just seriously get back to, it's likely, it's not for sure, but getting back to the phenomenological tradition, something that I was very interested in close to my PhD defense. I started reading Husserl. In fact, Logical Investigations was something that I got into in 2014 when I was a visiting researcher in University of Vienna. I was reading Husserl, I was reading about Husserl. And now that I'm not really, it's so easy to forget how much freedom we have. There are certain things that you think that you will do someday. A lot of those things, I think, are closer to us. They're available to us. You can really do this. Maybe you can do it in small steps, very small steps, but you can do them. I'm really grateful to Barbara Held. We didn't talk much, and we don't need to talk much, but she really was an ingredient in my life. I really needed her as a catalyst. I needed her voice, her attitude, her insights. To shake me out of my calm, disengaged way of life. So it's I told Chris about this. I just thought, academia sucks, life sucks, the corporate world sucks. And with that attitude, you just let time pass by. You let your days pass by. That's not, you can also start experimenting. You can experiment with different things. And then give up again, and then try something else, and then give up on that, and then try something else. You can try something.